He is our fallen hero, taken from us suddenly and unexpectedly. On that September morning, we stood in shock, heartbroken and in disbelief, our friends and neighbors now rendered to ashes that lay upon our city streets. The air smothered us with sadness, and we cried rivers over piles of smoldering debris. And when the clouds of malicious intent, death, and destruction slowly drifted away, we began to climb up from the shadows of fear. We all died a little that day, but our sense of pride and our sense of purpose did not falter. We shared sorrows, and we shared triumphs. We sought ways to help heal our haunted souls. We reached out, offering what we could. We asked the question, what can I do? And it was answered in many ways, from simple gestures of goodwill to bold, unselfish acts of kindness, honor, and duty. We came together then, and are here now and always, to let you know that you and your fallen brothers will never be forgotten, for you will forever be in the hearts and minds of us all. Here is one story of firefighters and their friends, a story of restoration, honor, and remembrance.
The day I picked it up and the story I was told about it, I said, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever you need, whenever you want. You want me to go now? At any time. It was freezing cold that day. The guys in the firehouse, it was very solemn. It was very, I was happy to do it. Just driving here on a highway from Jersey, people like beeping and waving, and as soon as I got into the city, everybody's looking and elbowing their buddy, look, and cops put on the lights and boop, 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 put on the sirens and waving, and I guess they don't know what it's from or why. All I know is maybe it's just some some guy with a bike who, with respect.
I don't know if that's the same bike, but I went up to Americade.
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay, because I saw it, and you guys fixed up this guy's bike. I was coming by here, I saw the FDNY, and I said, I know that bike, man. That thing looks familiar. And I looked at it and I said, and then read the story that you guys took it from being all beat up and totally fixing it up, in this guy's memory. I was like, fucking awesome.
The journey this motorcycle has taken has led back to the streets of Lower Manhattan. This bike is being temporarily stored at Rising Wolf Motorcycle Garage, owned and operated by Michael and Nuri Wernick. Michael is a retired New York City firefighter who worked closely with Gerard Baptiste, the former owner of the bike. Michael and Gerard were working at Engine 33, Ladder 9 in Lower Manhattan on 9/11. Michael retired the following year.
Yeah, this is my retirement gift. Look out. Pretty amazing.
What an X.
Here we go. 11/24/78 to 7/31/02. Ladder 9. Look at this, honey. Look at this. We heard the plane go down the highway or the river, and we ran to the corner. And basically everybody was in shock, pointing up to the Twin Towers, that a plane hit the Twin Towers. And like at that moment, everybody thought it was just an accident. And then the alarm started coming in, we responded. And as we were responding down, the other plane hit. So at that point we knew that, this can't be an accident. So they all jumped on the rig and we drove down. So Somebody was an extra guy. I'm trying to remember who that might be. I think it was either Gerard or it was probably Gerard. Might have been, oh. Now that I think about it, he was probably the extra guy. Because anybody that was hanging around the firehouse between shifts jumped on the rigs. So maybe Gerard was off that day, getting off. So we walked up the steps, and Gerard was probably with probably Tierney. I suspect he was with Tierney that day. And I don't know where they ended up, what floor. And that was pretty much the last I saw Gerard. After leaving the lobby, we were walking up at different floors, and I ended up on the 27th floor with Mike McGuire.
A minute or two after Michael had descended from the 27th floor of the North Tower, it too collapsed, blowing him off his feet. Debris filled his lungs and left him wearing patches over his eyes for several weeks. Gerard Baptiste, along with 9 other guys from his firehouse, Engine 33, Ladder 9, never made it out of the North Tower. They and 333 of their fellow firefighters perished that morning while trying to evacuate others from the World Trade Center.
I'm Michael. What's your first name?
Mike, I'm Brian.
Brian, how do you do?
Nice to meet you.
And you?
Eddie McDonough.
Eddie, how do you do?
Hey, aren't you retired?
Oh,
What's the matter? You can't give it up? I'm coming down.
this is great. This is great.
I'm looking out the window. I'm going, what the hell is he doing? Nice. Looks great.
We took the restored motorcycle to Engine 220, Ladder 122 in the Park Slope section of Brooklyn. Gerard was stationed here the year before rotating to Ladder 9 in Lower Manhattan.
You know the story behind this bike?
I was getting some of it, yeah. Actually, I remember it sitting in the firehouse, right? It was in the back of the firehouse.
There you go, yes.
And they were telling the stories, going, yeah, there was a motorcycle in the back of the firehouse.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
For the record,
I
this
didn't
is
know that he came
Lieutenant Pete Maglione, who worked in 9 truck with me for how many, 12, 14 years?
I was there for, well, how long were you there?
12 years?
I was there for 12 and a half years.
Okay, so I was there 11 and a half.
Okay.
Gerard just was a really good-hearted, special guy. You know, since I didn't know him for a long period of time, but you could tell that he was really into being a fireman. He was really good-natured. He was in the military. He had a really strong discipline, and he showed up early, and he was a pleasure to be around, and he was always willing to listen and learn.
Gerard always, you know, jumped right in there, and you know, he didn't have to. Being I was a junior guy, I was in charge of, you know, doing all the laundry and everything. So, and I'd go up there, and it would have been done already because Gerard, you know, folded everything, put it all away already, and I was like, you know, you're making me look bad here, you know. Leave it for me. Let me do it, you know.
When he came to 9, I had just got promoted out of there, but I used to stop by a lot, and I met him. He was like one of those clean-cut, you know, military guys, and actually he had a good reputation amongst the guys.
And in the kitchen, you're cooking lunch and dinner. He's in the, you know, he's in the sink doing the pots and the pans, and I'm trying to get in there, pushing him out, and I'm saying, you know, Gerard, you're making me look bad here. This is, you know, the guys are all senior men. They have their eye on the junior guy. They want to see if he's working, and you know, I try to do my part, and this guy's over there making me look bad, you know.
He really loved being in Ladder 9, and that's really important because if you're really happy where you work, you know, your life is going to be, you know, blessed.
When Gerard got here, you know, we run a little bit, we do a little bit of work. I mean, we're very honest down here for work. He loved it here, so he came from 19 truck as a rotation, like I said, to 5 engine, and then back out to Brooklyn somewhere, and then to 122, and then came back to Ladder 9. So it really was an honor for us to get him to say, you know, yeah, I love the Bronx. You know, I did like engine work in Lower Manhattan, but I like Ladder 9. You know, Ladder 9, it's got that little mystique, you know, and you have to actually work it to understand it. And by getting Gerard, he's in the service, he's an officer, he can teach, and he teaches the young guys. And that was a fantastic asset to Ladder 9, which is a very young company, and he teaches. He's a leader, not only in the service, but he's a leader here.
I was in his group, so I got to work with him a lot. But he showed me the rig. He kind of told me what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. I didn't go out with him too much after work, but I know he's big into bicycles and motorcycles. And he was a lot of fun. He's a good guy. And, I know he bounced to a 19 truck. That was his first stop, and he transferred out to go to the village. Up in the Bronx. It's in the Bronx. He was originally from the Bronx, and he lived up in the Bronx. And he bounced from 5-engine in Greenwich Village, which he liked. He bounced to here. He enjoyed here too. He liked all the stops he did in the rotation. But I know he wanted to be in the village, more nightlife or whatever Gerard it was for the girls, yeah.
But I know he was trying to get down. He was like looking for a girl living in the neighborhood. So that's when the biscuits came out with the dogs. Eddie, you heard that story? Yeah. Stand right outside every single day, hand out the dog the biscuits, and he was trying to find an apartment or girl. Depends, you know, if it came with an apartment or the apartment came with a girl.
You know, he was our biscuits guy. You know, by biscuits I mean, if he saw a woman walking a dog, he'd come out and he'd say, "Oh, matter of fact, I kid you not, I walk around with biscuits in my pocket." This is another good thing. It's only because of him. We have biscuits in the front because he would feed all the neighborhood dogs. So on a memorial placard upstairs, you'll see Biscuit Boys. Each guy has got a different name. You know, Bobby King was the wood guy. You know, Evans was Jerry Lewis. Well, he was Gerard Baptiste was the biscuits guy. So he kept biscuits in his pocket to feed the dogs. So women would walk the dogs in, and he'd feed them biscuits. So now it's like a legacy forever because these biscuits stay. You know, so little things like to me, they're still in there. And that was actually from 3 Truck the other day. 3 Truck does it also. Too, yeah. They do it also now.
Well, he was in several companies before Ladder 9, and I really think he liked being in a truck company, which is different from an engine company. In addition to that, he loved Lower Manhattan, you know, and he wanted to relocate to Lower Manhattan. So I think there was like that dual purpose. So, and plus Ladder 9, if you go by there and you look at that house, it's an unbelievable, beautiful landmark building. So the setting, the truck, the low-key atmosphere, I mean, it all equal to a great place. And I worked there, so, and I love the place. I fell in love with that place a long time ago, and it was my home. So I could see why someone would love that place.
I think it's great. What are they going to do with it? I like the hood ornament with the eagle. Very American.
Basically, it started one day when Gerard had this idea about riding a motorcycle. And he came to me and Nuri, and he wanted to get some advice about riding a bike. And this is his first motorcycle. So he knew I had this motorcycle garage, Rising Wolf. Came by here one day and he was walking around the garage looking at different bikes. And he didn't really like a lot of the exotic bikes that are here. But he found this one motorcycle, which is this bike here, which is a Honda CB750. And he just sort of had an attachment to this bike. We went to look at it, and in the East Village, right where we work. And it was basically a pretty ratty bike that didn't start. It was all rusted out. So I advised him not to buy this bike. It's not a good first bike for him. But somehow he felt strongly about it, and he was pushing me on it, and he asked me to come back again with someone who might be able to give him advice on how to get the bike started and what would it take and how much it would cost.
And this guy Yukio came with Nuri and I and Gerard, and we go to see this bike on Avenue B and 3rd or 4th Street, you know, Alphabet City over there. And he was looking at it, and he said, you know, you need $1,400 just to start the thing.
Right.
So,
Copyright alone, of course, is $600.
Right.
Started.
Pretty much. So we all advised him not to get this bike. Go look at the bylines, buy a $900 bike that runs and no one wants, it's sitting in their backyard, and for your first bike that would be adequate enough. And then so time passed, we drop him off, I go back to the firehouse, I'm working for a couple days, and I'm standing here just like this, and I see Gerard coming down the block, pushing this bike, pushing it to the firehouse. And I go, okay, what's up, Gerard? I go, I hope he gave that thing to you for free. And the guy was asking $900 for the parts. I go, offer him $50. So he ended up buying the thing for $100. He pushes it the back of the firehouse. He goes, no, I love this bike. I really want this particular bike. It's a standard motorcycle. There's no a lot of plastic on it like today. You know, he goes, this is the bike I really, really want. I go, okay. Put it back in the firehouse, 9/11 happens, and nothing ever happens.
I came into the firehouse, and I'm walking around, I'm looking at it. They have a beautiful firehouse on Great Jones there, and I look in the back, and I see this old bike sitting there. And I heard somebody had mentioned to me that Gerard had bought a bike. And I looked at it, and I was like, what is this thing? I mean, this thing looked like it belonged in a scrapyard, you know? I mean, I don't know what Gerard was thinking when he bought it. It certainly didn't look like this. It was just all rusted. There was no chrome. It looked like it was part of the Trade Center disaster. Let's put it that way. That's how bad it looked. I was like, I can't believe that Gerard would do this.
We were invited to, I guess it was sort of a fundraiser down at Ladder 9, Engine 33, Mike's firehouse. And we walked around the firehouse, around the fire trucks, and the guys were real gracious to us. I know they've been through a lot, and a lot of people have been walking in and out of there, asking questions, but the firefighters really took us in. And at one point, because we ride, my wife and I saw an old bike kind of stuffed in the back of the firehouse. I think it was behind the trucks, and it caught my eye because it was a motorcycle. So immediately I'm thinking, what's this? What kind of bike is this? And you couldn't tell too much about it. It sure didn't look like this. I mean, the paint was all off it, no chrome. I think the seat was ripped real bad, but we knew it was a Honda, and that was about it. And I asked somebody who was standing there whose bike it was, and I assumed that it was one of the firefighters there, had kind of buried the bike from his wife or was looking to rebuild it. The guys spent a lot of time down there, and probably most of their lives. And one of the firefighters said, well, that was Gerard Baptiste's motorcycle, and he had died only a few weeks earlier.
So it's not uncommon for firemen to bring in projects, whether it's a motorcycle, a car, a lawnmower, and then it sits in the back, and when they come to work, they work on it. So that's quite common. But I think what's astonishing more than anything, and this is actually one of the negatives that have occurred, is that we never got the opportunity to take a picture of the bike before, because we didn't know what it was going to end up to be. In someone's mind, we said we're going to restore this thing. So I don't know if anybody had a clear picture exactly what it was going to be initially. And I think it had a life of its own. And as it grew and people got more inspired and as more people got involved in it, it became actually, a work of art and became more professional. So I think initially people really didn't know what this thing, they were going to throw it away.
And then my friend Brian from Backroads magazine, which is a motorcycle magazine, came to visit me. And at the time I had patches on my eyes, it was just after 9/11, and he goes, well, what's that motorcycle doing on the side? And I told him the story about Gerard. So nothing was really said at that moment. So he goes home, starts making phone calls. That's my friend Brian. His wheels are always going. And he started to get a lot of momentum, and a lot of people were interested in restoring the motorcycle. And that's really what, and they go, well, let's restore it in his name. We'll give the money to his family. That was like really the way it started. And ended up he didn't have children, he wasn't married, like all the other guys.
When the decision was made to attempt the restoration, the bike was delivered to Cycle Service and Accessories in Newton, New Jersey.
We got involved in it kind of like a domino effect. We heard about this project soon after its inception, and we knew that the bike was coming out, and we said, yeah, us too, we'd like to become involved.
When we first heard about the bike, it was an email from one of our writers, Jeff Kurtzman, who told me this idea that he had seen a bike down at the firehouse on Great Jones Street. Right after 9/11, he went to visit our friend Mike Wernick, and among the different things in the firehouse was this old, beat-up Honda.
Brian and Shear from the magazine enlisted the help of a lot of people, a lot of good mechanics. I think Honda did quite a bit in terms of coming up with a lot of parts that they probably had to dust off, pipes and whatnot, and it's pretty amazing how it came out.
And it was Jeff's idea to do a story in his monthly column about a bike that all of a sudden didn't have a rider anymore. The rider was gone. And he put it together, and it went very well, and it was a nice article and whatnot. And about a month later, we got an email from one of our readers who said, this story really had touched him. And he wondered, is this bike going to stay there forever until someone drags it out of the firehouse and ends up in a junkyard? And he suggested that we maybe get involved with it, and maybe we could do something with it. it sounded like a very, very good idea.
One day I was reading their magazine and read a letter to the editor about this motorcycle, and the person said, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea to do something to restore this bike and bring it back in memory of this firefighter who died? And it immediately grabbed my heart, and I said to Steve, call Brian, we're doing this bike.
Well, where do you start on such a project? Well, you don't just polish the mirrors and you just don't fix the brakes. You disassemble the motorcycle.
This was a tough bike to do, only because of the condition that it was in when we started working on it. It just meant that we needed to put a little bit more attention into everything to get it finished, but it wasn't anything that couldn't be done.
It came off on a snowy day, and I took one look at this thing as it came off, and I said, oh my God, this is quite a project, and maybe we had bitten off more than we could chew.
We're going to bead blast, sand, scrape, prime, and paint the frame gloss black. Okay, then after the frame comes the suspension. We overhaul, bead blast, clean, and paint the rear axle swing arm. We overhaul the front forks and install progressive springs.
Everybody was behind this bike 100%. When there was, usually I didn't have to finish asking. They just would tell me, what do you want? Okay, what do you need? As I said, Gary Christopher from American Honda was just send me an email, make me a wish list. And it was a substantial wish list. And they didn't bat an eye.
We dismount the old tires, clean and polish the rims, and mount the new Avon tires. Okay, wow, now it's back on wheels. Okay, but it doesn't run. All the engine covers had to come off and go out for chroming. The carburetors had to be painstakingly disassembled and cleaned, which is a gargantuan task. And of course the engine block itself, filled with miles and years of crud and insects in between the cooling fins, all of that had to be cleaned and then painted with a special paint that makes it look like bead blasted aluminum.
When things go wrong, people will work together. People, unfortunately, people don't work together as much as they should. And I think this is proof that, you know, when times are tough and things are going wrong, that people will pull together and do what they have to do to make a difference.
Okay, then the fenders. Talk to the painter. Sean, what are we going to do with these fenders? They're pitted. Well, we agree that even though they were originally chrome, this wants to kind of look like an emergency vehicle, and they're painted red and white. So Sean very carefully grinds all the pitted areas off, primes it, fills it, and then paints the fenders white. In the same way with the tank. Our graphics folks in the city were able to recreate these logos in the tattoo. Sean painted the basic colors on, brought the tank back. We very carefully and luckily managed to get the decals and the logos on without wrinkling. Then back to Sean for clear coating and polishing and buffing, and then later we applied the gold stripes.
It's, you know, some people would say that it's just a 1979 CB 750KL with a really cool paint job, but there's far more to it than that. I mean, this is a memorial to a young man who, honestly, this I think would have been his very first motorcycle, you know, and it was just, I think, our way of finishing something that this young guy had started.
The electrical system, all the wiring leading to the parking lights, the headlights, the instruments, the fuses, the directionals, taillights, all of these light assemblies and lenses were very fortunately donated by American Honda. Again, that's what makes the difference. And of course, the piece de resistance, which is the 4x4 exhaust system.
The opportunity to see this grow from the bottom up and to know what it represents really just, it's something that was so fulfilling for myself to see something so terrible from 9/11 turn into something so beautiful in memory of a young man who gave his life for us.
So this is completely restored. 1980 CB750, and this one year was a limited edition where they combined the CB750F model and the C model. So this was just that 1 year, and this is the one Gerard said he wanted to fix up. Here's his badge numbers over here, and then the fire department, and this is the tattoo that Duffy designed. Right. And all the guys, like not all the guys, but about 8 guys got this tattoo.
This was like the basic bike everybody bought in the 70s and 80s. And you either raced it, chopped it, cruised it, do whatever you want. Until now today, he's got a Road King. So now there's everything's niche, very specific today. Back then, they didn't have all the choices that you have today.
It's different now. The job's very young now. A lot of the old timers retired. We lost a lot of guys. But, you know, they pick up, they learn. And, you know, there's the good side and the bad side. When you go out, you got to be careful. Anything can happen. And when you come back, you kind of have a little fun to offset it. And, you know, to keep your mind off of what could be. And that's how it works. I mean, that's how it works in my world.
You need to flip up the bars a little.
I know, at the time it's really bad timing.
Hey, watch the I'm shot.
Engine 33, Ladder 9, is located in the heart of the East Village, a part of Lower Manhattan that is renowned for its unique character and energy. The firehouse has been a highly praised New York City landmark since it first opened in 1899. Due to the tremendous number of fires, the area earned the nickname Hell's 100 Acres. Michael had spent his last 11 years working Ladder 9. Gerard had spent his last year working the same truck.
This is from a woodworker out in Minnesota, and he felt so strongly about the wood, about the tattoo, that he, like you guys, they're going to be out a while. It says interior wall collapse. They're going to be out a while. These are the firemen in the truck, the engine, and you could just see the detail on this. Look at the helmet, the scroll on the helmet, the wood chips, the snake-like skin. It's unbelievable, the detail on this. This is one man was so emotionally attached to this design that Kevin Duffy did that he felt compelled to do this, and he donated this to the firehouse. This is unbelievable to me, that someone would do this, that doesn't know anybody here. 10 roses of the 10 guys that we lost.
After 9/11, you started losing more men. You know, I think maybe it's just time to pack it in now. I have my 20 years. I'm going to get out. To date, as of June, from what I understand, there are only 8 members in the fire department ranks with 30 years and better. 8. Now, when I first got here, Mikey got here, we had 8 guys in our house with 30 years. And there are only less than 200 men now with 20 years and better in the fire department ranks. I'm not saying the officer ranks may be a tad different, but all you have is 8 and 200 out of a force of over 8,000.
Check this out. Duffy putting it on the floor.
Oh, man.
Except it's taking him a long time. He didn't finish it, so he keeps it covered. He's got a lot to go. The old wood lockers.
Well, after 9/11, we received 18 new firefighters. 15, I believe, but now we have 18 new firefighters. What we had prior to was a great mesh of guys and girls. Everyone knows the other person's quirks. They know what they can do at a job, what they can't do at a job, you know. you have a different sense of, you have to start from scratch is what you got to do. You know, Mikey and myself, we got 20 years on, you know, we know what we can do. You know, Mikey, he can think it and Daniel do it. I can think it, Mikey does it. I mean, that's how trained we are. I know where Mikey's going to be at an alarm. He knows where I'm going to be. You don't always know where the young guys are going to be. Yes, they do try their hardest, and you got to give them all the credit in the world, stepping into something that they know nothing about. In a way of, pre 9/11, we had all our guys. Post 9/11, we have all brand new guys. I don't know you. He don't know me. You don't know what I can do. So you all have to start to get that mesh back together again. And we've meshed back together again. I mean, we have a great unity right here. 33 and 9, you know, one's no good without the other. You know, yeah, we make fun of the engine of the truck, you know, yeah, you're taking this run in, you are going to take this run in. But I'm no good without a great engine. Engine 33 is a great engine, but they're no good either unless I can take that door and go in and make a search and have that engine behind me. You know, so we've come together as a unit now after 9/11, and it's a very good firefighting unit. The guys are all very good together. You can't really say a bad word about any one of them, you know. My life is in their hands, their life is in my hands, and that's our job, and that's what we do. So we've learned to grow after 9/11. You know, we have to. You just can't close the doors and say, I'm not going to go to an alarm.
There's history on this floor. The wood floors, the old lockers. Another guitar player. And at various times we've had 18 parrots up here, snakes, fish. That's all I know about. But right upstairs here, we have a basketball court and a 4-wall paddleball court. Except it's hard to get to. If you want to climb, we can climb. Pretty cool, right? Anything to release that energy. This is the roof.
In the years that have followed, firefighters are still learning to cope with the emotions that linger as a result of the events of 9/11.
I can tell you, you know, I pushed to go in service so almost immediately because I knew a building fell on Michael, and I almost didn't take into consideration his feelings, and I really felt bad about that later on. It was good for me to get back into service because I saw what was going on there, so I didn't want any part of that anymore. So it was like, let's just get back into service. They're catching fires around here, and I had to do a couple things. So I was upset at you for getting me like that, but I loved you so. But, you know, you didn't want to go, and I didn't feel, I never told you that, but I never felt how you felt. You know what I mean? I wanted to do it. Yeah, initially when we were going into service, you know. And then when we sat down, we thought about it. And I said, wow, I was wrong. Because I was always looking after myself, not after Mikey. So that was a bad thing.
Michael and Dan worked Ladder 9 truck together for more than 11 years.
I love the Mikey.
This is my second wife.
Yeah, it's true. I'm the second wife.
Dan, a 21-year veteran, carried out his own dream on how to thank those who helped heal New York City. Through Dan, the Thank You America bike tour was born.
The whole thing actually materialized after 9/11. I came back from working down at what used to be the Trade Center, and we came back to a house that had no one. You know, we didn't have an engine, we didn't have a truck. We had a relocator like 48 hours later on, and people were coming in. They were so sad. They were putting little cards and flowers and candles and you name it, and people started coming in donating money to everybody. Well, what got me the most was a homeless guy who walked through the door, and he went down into his pocket and gave you his last $1.22. I mean, I'll never forget that. He handed me everything he had for the day, and you stand there for a second. I've never had anyone give me everything. Have you ever had anybody give you everything? No, the guy had nothing, but yet he said to me, this is all I've got. And that twisted me so. And then, like the following day, you had a bunch of little Girl Scouts come in, brownies, matter of fact, with their troop leader, and gave you a can of change that they sold their lemonade stand money. You know, they didn't have to do that. It could have went for, you know, a pizza party for them. But yet they wanted to give something to the families, and then to go to all these funerals which weren't funerals, but they were memorial services. So I took the Pfeiffer family with me. I took the Tierney family. You know, I took the Evans family to go, because I had access to a van, and to stand in line and seeing every other unit, because it wasn't us who was going to our funerals, but it was every state in the United States and overseas who partook in our memorial services. It wasn't us, because we couldn't do them. We were doing 7, 8 memorial services a day. So in order to make that beautiful blue line beautiful, it was, you know, it was Detroit, Michigan, it was Chicago, Illinois, it was California, it was Texas, it was everybody there but us. And how I came up with the idea was, how do we pay all these people back? You know, so I started making phone calls, and I got in touch with one person. He said, "Oh, it was a fantastic idea." Then I got in touch with Cannondale, and Cannondale says, "I'll give you anything you want. You want to bike across? You think you can do this, Mr. Rowan?" I says, "I can do anything, because I have a dream, like Mikey had a dream. I had a dream, and my dream was to handshake people and pat people on the butt and grab them physically and say, from the bottom of my heart and our heart, I thank you for being there for New York City." And that's what it was all about. It wasn't by no means a publicity thing. It was all an honest to goodness from the bottom of our heart, you know, a ride to say thanks. So I put together 5 guys, 6 actually, and people started hopping on the bandwagon. We had a police escort from New York City World Trade Center right to Pasadena, California, where we had a police escort. Each individual city and town picked us up and drove us to the next city. So it wasn't me who made it work. It wasn't the 5 guys. It was a team of guys, but it was a team of a nation that actually grabbed a hold of us to drag us to the next town. And trust me, when we were beat up and we were tired, like it rained on us 7 days. It snowed on us one day in Oklahoma, which I didn't think it ever snowed in Oklahoma. You know, it snowed in lower part of Globe, Arizona. It snows in Globe because you were the hill. They came back down. It was freaking cold up there, and it was snow. I mean, who knew snow in Arizona? And they say it doesn't rain in Arizona. Bull! It rained on us for a day. You know, going into Phoenix and going into Mesa, Tempe, it was raining on us. You know, so anyway, it was the wholehearted nation that made it work. It just wasn't 5 guys. It was a nation, because we all banded together as one unit, and that's how that worked. So that's why we did what we had to do. You know, so
What Danny was talking about before with these young guys, you don't know what they can do at a fire is because they don't have any experience. And experience is all about time, going to fires, learning from the older guys. And since Danny's been here a long time, and I've been here a while, you develop a trust. And you learn, so that's really what we're talking about. You know, like in any relationship. You know, whether you have with your children or your parents, your wife, it's always about time. So that's what we met. You sort of miss the new guys, right?
Yeah, I do miss that.
You know, Pete Maglione, when I saw him the other day, I mean,
it makes you smile, don't it?
Yeah, you know, 14 years with Pete. You know,
bing, and then things click in again.
You know, you see Pete a guy first come on the job, and then as he matures as a fireman, and then obviously now he's a lieutenant. You met him the other day. But you're not going to have that anymore once you leave here, you know, to develop those ties. You'll have different ties and different social arrangements. But when you depend on somebody for your life, and then you, like I went to a fire with Pete. Pete shouldn't be here today. He fell down an elevator shaft. And just by luck, the elevator was on the floor below. But in a building that's 17 stories or 16-story building, the elevator could have been anywhere. If you just think about the odds of life. An elevator just sits wherever it is. We were on the 5th floor. He fell down the elevator, 6th floor, and he fell to the 5th floor. Remember that?
Right.
But you go. You remember that? Yeah, that was unbelievable.
I sure do.
So it's that kind of stuff that, you know, we've built over a long, long time.
I think for the generations that will look back on 9/11 and it will be just mere history, they have to have something tangible to look at, to remember. whether it's a story that somebody tells them that has happened to them personally, or I think this motorcycle represents another kind of tangible, that when people look at this and they read the placard in memory of Gerard Baptiste, and they understand that this motorcycle is more than just a piece of machinery, it really represents a human being.
What happened when we showed the bike at one of the bike shows at the Javits, people really like gathered around it. People who had been in 9/11 came to look at it. Firefighters came to just kind of stand near it and look at it.
There was one particular fellow at the bike show, big strapping guy from New Jersey, and he was a firefighter from Jersey City. And he's reading this thing, and he's with his daughter, and then he asked if he could come into the booth and sit by the bike and look at the bike in detail, and we certainly were happy to accommodate him. And I turned around and I looked at him, and I realized this guy is losing it, and he just broke down in tears. I mean, I'm talking sobbing tears, because it struck a chord.
A lot of guys stopped by and saw Gerard's picture over the bike and said, oh, you know, I went to the academy with him, or I served with him in a firehouse. So in that respect, I like to think that maybe he would be happy that the bike pulled a lot of people together.
I've been looking at this thing for 15 months and I can hardly keep a dry eye every time I look at it. But it had to be done. We wanted to do it, and we got a great satisfaction, all of us, to see it the way it is now.
You know, I was wondering if this was our dream, you know, to put a bike together that looked this good. Would he have really wanted it? And I talked to Mike, and he knew him pretty well, and said that Gerard really wanted to get this bike running, really wanted to ride it.
I was really so happy to be part of something that was a group effort, and that to just be part of that celebration of the completion of it, and to be able to bring it to that fire department that day, knowing that we accomplished something that a young man set out as a goal, obviously could have never accomplished in his life. And by everybody working together, we accomplished that goal for him.
For firefighters, the men and women of the firehouse are a second family. Those bonds remain long after retirement.
The thing that struck me was about maybe 15 or 20 off-duty guys pull up, and they're all piling into this van and into this pickup truck, and they're all going back and forth to the site. And these guys are, you know, some of them are 60 years old, and they got their gear on, they got their old leather helmets, and they're all bent up, and they got their, you know, they just want to get in there and you know, 132 truck lost all their men that day, so they wanted to go and find their men. Even though they probably didn't know any of those men personally, it was their company. And it was still their company 20 years after they retired.
And you never forget. You know, you still think about the guys you worked with. Sometimes you just remember things, and then you think about what happened, and you're like, oh man, they're not here anymore, you know? But you have to go on.
Everybody was so astonished by the 9/11. I think people, you know, Americans specifically have very short-term memories. So I think this just goes buried back into the psyche. And you know, if you're affected by it, obviously you're going to live with the scars for a long time. But I think the general public, you know, just goes on with their life, and like any tragedy, there's you know, it's so complex living in today's world that there's new tragedies that occur, and it buries the old ones. So if you don't have an association with it, it's like, what's the next new thing that we have to deal with? Obviously for the families, they're going to live with that for a long time. So how people view this thing, it's like anything. You know, time's a good healer. And I think for a lot of people, they just move on.